Have you ever witnessed a moment so powerful that it stops you in your tracks? A moment where the smallest gesture reveals the biggest truth. This is one of those moments. James was a man who had spent most of his life chasing control. Control over his schedule, his business, and even his emotions. At 45, he wore the sharpest suits, spoke with authority, and carried the weight of a busy CEO on his shoulders. His days were packed with meetings, decisions, and endless calls. Success was his comfort zone, but today was different. His sleek black car, a symbol of his achievements, had betrayed him on a lonely stretch of road just outside a small town in Georgia. The sun was dipping low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the dusty earth, and the silence around him was almost deafening. James sat behind the wheel, far from his kingdom of skyscrapers and boardrooms, feeling vulnerable for the first time in years. Not far away, a little girl named Maya was making her way home. She was just 10 years old, but there was a fire in her eyes that belied her age. Maya lived nearby with her mother, a hard-working woman who did everything she could to keep their small family afloat. Maya had grown up learning how to fix things, anything with gears and wires, thanks to the lessons her grandfather had lovingly passed down before he passed away. Even though her world was small and her circumstances humble, Maya carried an extraordinary resilience inside her. She was kind-hearted and brave, with a natural knack for problem-solving that set her apart from other kids her age. As the warm afternoon sunlight poured over the quiet, rural road, fate quietly began to weave a story that neither James nor Maya could have ever imagined. James slammed the door of his luxury car shut, his jaw clenched in frustration. The engine had refused to turn over for the third time, and each failed attempt only deepened the feeling he wasn't used to: powerlessness. He stepped out, glancing at his phone again. No signal, no bars, no internet. Just an empty stretch of dusty road and the hum of cicadas in the warm Georgia air. The towering pine trees lining the road whispered in the breeze, but offered no help, no answers. James let out a low sigh and leaned against the hood, his arms crossed, his spotless dress shirt starting to cling to his skin from the heat. This wasn't just a mechanical failure, it was a crack in his perfectly ordered world. "I can't believe this," he muttered under his breath. Of all days, today had been packed, investors waiting, a merger to finalize, deadlines, expectations, and now here he was, a high-powered CEO, stranded like a lost traveler, alone in the silence. A few yards away, a figure emerged at the edge of the road. She was small, barely 4 feet tall, her backpack a little too big for her shoulders. A red lunchbox dangled from one hand, and in the other, she carried something unusual for a child, a small, worn-out toolkit. Maya had been walking home from school, her braids swinging gently as she hummed to herself. She stopped when she saw the man and the car, the smoke from under the hood, the man's tense posture, the luxury vehicle completely out of place in her part of town. Most kids would have kept walking, but Maya wasn't like most kids. She'd seen this kind of problem before, with her mum's old truck, with the neighbor's tractor, and even with the town's pastor's minivan. Cars didn't scare her, problems didn't scare her, but people sometimes did. She took a breath and crossed the road toward him. James noticed her approach. A young girl, brown-skinned, no older than 10, wearing faded jeans and a shirt with a tiny grease stain. He straightened, unsure whether to speak or wait. She wasn't what he was expecting, and that made him pause. "Sir," Maya said gently, shielding her eyes from the sun with one hand. "Your car's not working?" James looked down at her. Her voice was polite, but confident. Still, he hesitated. She was just a child. He wasn't used to accepting help, let alone from someone who looked like this, young, black, and barefoot on a dusty road with a toolkit in her hand. Yeah," he finally replied. unsure of how to phrase his confusion. "It's not starting, but it's fine. I'll figure something out." Maya nodded slowly, reading the doubt in his voice, the tension in his stance. "I'm pretty good with cars," she said, not boastfully, just as a fact. "My grandpa taught me. He used to fix everything around here before he passed." James looked at the little girl, unsure how to respond. Could this child seriously help him? He wanted to laugh it off, to politely say no. But his eyes drifted back to the smoke, the dead dashboard, the useless phone in his pocket. "You're, what, 10? He asked, unable to mask the disbelief in his tone. 10.5, she corrected, a faint smile playing on her lips. "But I've fixed transmissions and belts and broken starters, not afraid of getting a little dirty either." She held up the little metal case, and James could see the tools inside. Real tools, old but cared for. Still, a flicker of discomfort ran through him. It wasn't about her skills, not really. It was about letting go. Letting someone else take control, especially someone society rarely empowered. In another place, another time, he might have walked right past her, not even noticed. But here, on this road, surrounded by trees and silence, there was no one else. James shifted his weight, still unsure. Maya caught the hesitation in his eyes. She'd seen it before, at stores, at school, even from adults in her own town. "I get it," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "You don't know me, I'm just a kid, but maybe give me a shot. If I can't fix it, I'll walk to town and get help." That sentence stopped him cold, not just because of her offer, but because of the kindness behind it, the selflessness, the quiet courage. She wasn't trying to prove herself, she just wanted to help. James looked down at the little girl, sweat on her brow, sun in her eyes, toolkit in her hand, and suddenly, something shifted inside him. "All right," he said quietly, "let's see what you've got." Maya grinned, wide and genuine. She stepped forward and popped the hood with ease, like she'd done it 100 times before. And as James watched her small hands move confidently among the wires and bolts, he felt something unexpected stir within him. Hope. Maya knelt beside the car, rolling up her sleeves without hesitation. Her fingers moved with the ease of someone who had done this a dozen times before. Maybe not on luxury cars like this, but metal was metal, and engines all spoke the same language. She squinted into the maze of wires and tubes, brushing her hand across the components with delicate precision. "Battery cables loose," she murmured to herself, then louder, for James. "This might be why it's not starting." James raised an eyebrow, still unsure what to think. "She can't be right," a voice inside him whispered, but another voice, quieter, deeper, told him to stay still, to watch, to listen. Maya pulled a wrench from her kit and tightened the terminal with a steady grip. Her small hands showed signs of wear, tiny nicks, a bit of engine grease under her nails, but her movements were confident, professional, no hesitation, no guesswork. "There," she said with a satisfied nod. "Try starting it now." James blinked. "Really?" He climbed into the driver's seat, pressed the ignition button. The engine roared to life. Smooth, clean, like nothing had ever been wrong. He stared at the dashboard, then at Maya, who stood dusting her hands on her jeans, her expression calm. Almost bored, like this was no big deal, but to James, it was everything. He stepped out slowly, the sound of the engine humming behind him, disbelief painted across his face. "You fixed it," he said quietly. Maya shrugged, like it was just another Tuesday. "Told you I was good." James let out a short breath, equal parts laughter and awe. It wasn't just the car, it was her, the way she carried herself, the way she never sought approval, only offered help. Still, years of boardrooms and negotiations kept his face guarded. He nodded, polite and professional. "Thank you, I didn't expect that." Maya smiled faintly but didn't say much. Her eyes wandered for a moment, and that's when she noticed it. James's hand, more specifically, his wedding ring. Gold, elegant, but old, worn down around the edges, like it had been through decades of stories, weathered by love and time. Maya tilted her head slightly, then slowly pulled a chain from beneath her shirt. Hanging from it was a ring, smaller, silver, and just as aged. She didn't say a word. She simply held it up for a moment, a silent offering. James's eyes dropped to the ring in her hand, and his heart stopped. His breath caught. His knees buckled slightly. It wasn't just a ring. It was the ring, the initials engraved on the inside. He knew them, the tiny scratch on the edge. He remembered how it happened. It was his wife's ring. The one she had lost 10 years ago, the one she had worn when they said goodbye. He stared at Maya, stunned, his mind racing. Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Maya looked at him with gentle eyes. "My mom gave it to me. She said it belonged to someone who loved her once, but lost her." And in that moment, like thunder cracking through a quiet sky, it hit him. James fell to his knees, memories flooded in, of a woman he had loved deeply before time and choices had separated them, of a child he had never known, of regret that had lingered like a shadow for years. He looked at Maya again, really looked at her, the curve of her smile, the spark in her eyes. There was no doubt now, this was his daughter. His voice broke as he whispered, "You're Maya." She nodded slowly, and in that instant, the weight of 10 years, of missed birthdays, of unanswered questions, of lost time, came crashing down on him. Tears filled his eyes, unspoken emotion catching in his throat. The powerful CEO was gone. All that remained was a father rediscovering something he thought he had lost forever. As James knelt in front of Maya, the distant sound of the humming engine faded. The world seemed to hold its breath, as if time itself paused for this quiet revelation. His eyes stayed fixed on the ring dangling from the chain around her neck, glowing faintly in the warm sunlight. The same ring he had once slipped onto his wife's finger, decades ago. The same ring he thought had vanished along with her memory. His voice trembled. "That ring, it belonged to my mother." Maya's eyes softened. "She was my grandma. I never met her, but Mama, she told me stories, said she was brave, kind, and that this ring meant everything to her." James felt the past rising in waves, unstoppable, unbearable. He looked away for a moment, ashamed, the pain suddenly overwhelming. "I thought I'd lost her. Not just the ring, not just your grandmother. I lost everything." Maya sat down next to him, the dust stirring gently beneath her shoes. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why did you disappear?" James stared at the horizon, as if trying to see back through time. "It was a long time ago. I was younger, so full of ambition. I had just started building the company. I thought I could chase everything, success, family, legacy. But I was blind." His voice cracked. "We fought," he whispered, "your grandmother and I, after my wife passed. I couldn't handle the grief. I pushed your mother away. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know about you." Maya looked down, twirling the ring between her fingers. "I always wondered," she said softly, "why we never had anyone. Just Mama and me. She never talked about you. Only Grandma. Said she loved too deeply and lost too hard." James turned toward her, tears now falling freely. "I didn't just lose my daughter. I lost the chance to be a father and a grandfather." Silence stretched between them, heavy with years of pain and distance. Maya finally broke it. "I used to dream about you," she said, almost like a confession. "When I was little, I'd pretend you were watching me from far away. that you were proud of me, even when the other kids made fun of me, even when Mom worked double shifts, and I had to fix things around the house myself. I'd think maybe he'd be proud if he knew. James's heart shattered. He reached out, cautiously, and took her hand in his. "I am proud of you," he said, "more than I can ever say. You fixed my car when I was helpless, but more than that, you fixed something in me I didn't even know was broken." Maya looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth behind his eyes. The pain, the longing, the regret. She didn't pull her hand away. James glanced down at the ring in her palm again, a symbol now burning with memories. "That ring," he said, voice low, "was a promise. Between me and your grandmother. That love doesn't end. Not really, even when we mess up, even when we lose our way." Maya nodded, her voice small but certain. "I think she brought us here. Somehow." He smiled, bittersweet. "I'd like to think so too." A breeze swept through the trees, carrying the scent of sun-warmed grass and old Georgia soil. In the quiet rustle of leaves, James heard his past whispering and the future opening. "I want to be in your life," he said, his tone sincere, pleading. "If you'll let me. I can't change what I missed, but I can start now. I want to know you, to make up for the time we lost." Maya didn't answer right away. She looked at the road, stretching endlessly behind them, and then ahead, uncertain but full of possibilities. Finally, she gave a small, soft smile. "I think Grandma would have liked that." James chuckled through his tears. "She always said I needed a good smack of truth. Guess you gave it to me." Their laughter mingled with the rustling wind, light, fragile, but full of life. What began as a random breakdown on a rural road had become something far greater, a reunion shaped not by coincidence, but by something deeper, something woven through time, sorrow, and the persistent strength of love. James stood slowly, extending a hand to help Maya up. "Come on, let me give you a ride home." She raised an eyebrow. "You sure the car won't die again?" He grinned. "Not if my mechanic stays close." Hand in hand, they walked back to the car, no longer strangers but family, rediscovered on a forgotten road. As the warm Georgia sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long golden shadows across the dusty road, James turned toward Maya with eyes full of emotion. No words passed between them at first, only silence, thick with meaning, history, and a love long denied. Then, without hesitation, he stepped forward and pulled her into a tight embrace. Tears streamed freely down both of their faces. Years of pain, confusion, and loneliness melting away in the strength of that single heartfelt moment. James held her as if he were anchoring himself to something real, something he thought he'd lost forever. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I'll never leave again. Never." Maya clung to him tightly, her small arms wrapping around him with both the innocence of a child and the strength of someone who had been strong for far too long. "You promise?" she asked quietly, barely above a breath. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, eyes that mirrored his own. Not just in color, but in depth, in pain, in hope. "I promise, with everything I have left." And in that instant, something shifted in Maya's face. A light sparked, not pure joy, not yet, but hope. Cautious, trembling, but real. The kind of hope that only grows from surviving disappointment and daring to believe again. Behind them, the engine of the luxury car hummed quietly, steady and alive. But now, it meant something more. It wasn't just a machine repaired by a clever young girl. It was a symbol, a metaphor. This car had broken down, just as their family had. And just like Maya had fixed it, she'd unknowingly begun to repair something far more fragile. The connection between two hearts, separated, By time and silence, James turned and walked to the car. He opened the door but paused before getting in. Pulling out his sleek, high-end phone, he glanced at the screen. Several missed calls, meeting reminders blinking impatiently. He stared at them for a long second, then pressed a button. Cancel. Everything, he said into the phone. Tell the board I won't be in today, or tomorrow. I have something more important. A stunned silence came through the line before he ended the call and turned back to Maya, who was watching him with wide eyes. You did that for me? She asked, still unsure, still half dreaming. James smiled. No, sweetheart. I did that. For us. A light laugh escaped Maya's lips, the kind that starts deep in the soul. She stepped forward, her hand slipping easily into his. Where do we go now? She asked. James looked out over the horizon. Not the road behind, but the one ahead. Home, he said softly. To the house your grandmother and I built. It's been empty for too long. It's time to fill it with laughter again, with family. Maya's eyes sparkled. Will Mom be there? He nodded. If she'll let me, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to know her again. I want to know you. I want to be the family you never had. The car door closed with a quiet click, the engine a soft promise beneath their feet. As they pulled onto the road, the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow over the two figures now bound by love, legacy, and a second chance neither of them saw coming. They didn't speak much during the drive. Words weren't needed. James reached over and gently held Maya's hand, his thumb brushing against her knuckles in quiet reassurance. Maya leaned her head against the window, her heart no longer heavy, but cautiously blooming. For the first time in her life, she wasn't walking, home alone. She had found something she never expected that day on the roadside. She found her grandfather. And James, well, he hadn't just found his granddaughter. He had rediscovered purpose, healing, a future, one repaired engine, one broken family, and one beautiful beginning. The silver car rolled gently up a gravel driveway, its tires crunching softly beneath the weight of return. The house before them was small and weathered, its white paint peeling slightly, its porch sagging with age, but it stood strong, like the memories it held. James stepped out first, his heart thudding in his chest. This was once his home. Once. Filled with laughter, arguments, lullabies, and quiet goodbyes. A place he had left behind when grief had clouded his path. Now, standing beside Maya, it didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt like a second chance. The front door opened slowly, and there she was, Maya's mother. James froze, the years crashing into him like a wave. Her eyes, so much like his late wife's, narrowed first in disbelief, then widened in a storm of emotions too tangled to name. He took a shaky breath and stepped forward. I know I don't deserve this moment, he said softly, but I'm here because I'm tired of running from the pain. I want to face it with both of you. Silence hung in the air, and then, just as James feared he'd already lost his chance, Maya's mother stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. It wasn't perfect. It was raw, trembling, and filled with unsaid words. But it was real. I thought you were gone. Forever, she whispered, her voice breaking. I thought I was too, James replied. But Maya, she brought me back. Inside, the house smelled of old wood, warm stew, and time. Family pictures still lined the mantel, some old, some new. Maya walked James through the rooms, her excitement blooming as she pointed out her drawings on the fridge, her favorite books, and even the tiny shelf where her grandfather's picture used to sit, now replaced by a new photo of them, taken just hours ago by the roadside. Later, they sat around the kitchen table, 3 generations together at last. Laughter echoed softly through the house, clumsy but growing. Over tea, James listened intently as Maya talked about her dreams. How she wanted to fix engines, not just because she liked machines, but because fixing things made her feel strong, needed, capable. James smiled, emotion welling in his chest. "You fixed more than just my car today, Maya," he said quietly. "You fixed me." She grinned, then leaned over and placed her small hand over his. "Grandpa," she said, "sometimes the most broken things make the strongest stories." And there it was, resilience in a child's voice, in a small kitchen, in the hands of a girl who was once overlooked but had become the reason a family was whole again. Outside, the wind rustled the trees, soft and forgiving. The sun slipped beyond the horizon, casting a golden glow on the house that now held hope once more. As soft piano chords swelled in the background, the camera lingered on the three of them, sharing a meal, sharing laughter, and sharing the beginning of something beautiful. Not a perfect ending, but a real one, a healed one. And as the screen slowly faded to black, one final message appeared in quiet, elegant text. "Kindness doesn't just repair cars, it repairs hearts." Today, James and Maya share a bond that time once tried to erase. Their relationship continues to grow, built on love, forgiveness, and second chances. With James by her side, Maya's talent for mechanics has blossomed, and together they've inspired their small town with a story of healing and hope, because sometimes a breakdown can lead to a breakthrough. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us what truly matters. Leave a comment. What moment moved you the most? We'd love to hear your thoughts.